According to Gina Carano, she found out that she was fired the same way we did, on Twitter. Keep it classy, Disney. Of all the cowardly things to do, firing someone on social media without even bothering to tell them first is pretty high on that list. This came out in an interview Carano did with Barry Weiss. Weiss wanted to figure out what happened here, specifically because of Twitterati don't stop. It wasn't enough for them to harass Carano for months. It wasn't enough for her to be fired for basically nothing. No, they had to do their usual thing of scouring her Twitter feed to find something. Anything incriminating to prove she's anti-Semitic, since saying don't be like Nazis isn't really anti-Semitic. And they found one. This picture of Uncle Bad Touch and other members of the Democrat Epstein cabal sitting around a Monopoly board filled with money, a globe, and dildos. Or they may be crack pipes. Probably double for both. Anyway, the image is based on the Freedom for Humanity mural, which is considered anti-Semitic because of the Jewish caricatures used. Like the Twitterati, Weiss had the, well, I guess she is a bigot response, but then she followed it up with this thing called curiosity and decided to, wait for it, ask Gina Carano what she meant by tweeting the image. I know, right? Who does that? Who asks someone's intent? You don't ask the person's intentions, you just assume whatever you want while also saying that intentions don't matter until you do the same shit. Then it's all about intentions. It turns out that Carano didn't know what the image was based on. Quote, I was in utter shock and confusion when certain people said it was anti-Semitic. Then, as I went to take it down, I noticed that the image was not the same as the one people were referencing. I was honestly confused. Should I take it down or leave it up? I still don't know the answer to that question because taking it down only makes the mob attack you more. Which is correct. These people will not stop, and trying to appease them will only make it worse. I also think that claiming this image is anti-Semitic is a stretch because there isn't any Jewish imagery or iconography in the image. If the men were replaced with the great tyrants of history, I don't think anyone would call it anti-Semitic. Even if the origin of the original image comes from that intent, you can change the image to change the context and the meaning. That's what art does. I don't know why it's suddenly wrong to play with well-known art and propaganda to send a different message. Along the same lines, I disagree with Weiss's point, quote, a good rule of thumb is to avoid comparing America to 1930s Germany, your political opponents to Nazis, and yourself and your allies to Jews. What Carano wrote, or likely repeated and shared, was wrong because the Holocaust is a singular evil. That's a non sequitur. How often a bad thing happens has nothing to do with whether it's right to compare a situation with that bad thing. Jews are not the only people who have been targeted for genocide. Hell, they weren't the only victims of the Holocaust, and if Hitler had gotten his way, they wouldn't have been the biggest group of victims. That would have been all the Slavs. There's also no guarantee it won't happen again, and that's basically the point of the comment. You need to notice when this stuff is starting up again, and we're seeing that. We're seeing the same kind of language, the same kind of targeting, the same excuses made in the late 1920s and early 1930s in Germany. I wish it weren't so, but it is, and you need to be able to say that no matter how much you appear to want to be the only people who've ever been wrong. Never again shouldn't just apply to you, it should apply to everyone. It doesn't, which is why people like Ice Cube, Nick Cannon, and John Cusack feel comfortable making anti-Semitic statements and facing no reprisal. It's why Pedro Pascal, other progressives, and even the media can reference Nazis when talking about detaining illegal immigrants and face no accusations of appropriation of Jewish suffering. That's fine, but say, hey lefties, don't be like Nazis, that's too much. And that leads us back to Carano getting fired. Like I thought, Lucasfilm wasn't happy about Carano making the pronoun joke, and they decided to punish her for it. Quote, earlier in last year before The Mandalorian came out, they wanted me to use their exact wording for an apology over pronoun usage. I declined and offered a statement in my own words. I made clear I wanted nothing to do with mocking the transgender community and was just drawing attention to the abuse of the mob in forcing people to put pronouns in their bio. Again, I don't know why this is an issue. We're talking about 0.004% of the population being transgender, and you're demanding, not asking, demanding that the other 99.996% of the world put pronouns in their bio as if your random guess about people's sex would be wrong. No one needs to do this, and it makes less sense to attack someone for refusing to do it. But the result was Lucasfilm cut Carano from all PR for the show. She said, quote, that was the last time I was contacted about any public statement or apology from Lucasfilm. I found out through social media, like everyone else, that I had been fired. Let that sink in. They didn't tell the woman they fired her. What would it have taken to call her or her agent up and tell her she was fired? Nothing. It would have taken nothing. This is the bare minimum of professionalism. You tell the person directly, not through email or text or social media, but directly that you're firing them. The cowardice it takes to tell everyone but the person you're firing that you fired them is amazing. If you are wondering just how shitty Disney Lucasfilm has become, there you go. You wouldn't even fire the woman to her face. That's probably because you know you don't have any good reason to fire her. Over what? Saying don't be like Nazis, making fun of ever-changing mask mandates, and this bullshit with the pronouns? Really? That can't be the real reason. It's gotta be that Carano was critical of far-left ideas. She was fired because of her politics. Now, someone commented on the piece saying, quote, Carano wasn't fired for being a conservative. She was fired for posting offensive memes and acting like an idiot. That would be a good argument if Pedro Pascal hadn't done the same thing. Disney just hired an open racist Christina Ariel to host their High Republic show. She made clearly racist statements and Disney hired her and then supported her, calling her critics racist for pointing out her racism. If this were about so-called offensive tweets, Disney would have no employees. Then the person says, quote, I may not understand the use of pronouns. I may even disagree. But if it is required by my employer to add them to my profile, especially when it's public, I do it. I don't mock it and act like a child. If I don't follow the requirement, I should expect to be fired. That is how it works. No, it's not. Your employer has no legal right to ask or force you to present any personal information on your social media accounts. Even if it were a company account, they can't force you to put any personal information in the bio for that account. That's a violation of privacy, and they can be sued into oblivion if they fired you for it. She was told to stop her outrageous post. She was told to add pronouns. She didn't, so she got fired, and rightfully so. 1, no, not rightfully so, and 2, she did put her pronouns in her bio. Beep bop boop. Respect her pronouns, bigot. Look, this was a partisan political move designed to frighten any conservatives, or liberals with functioning brains, from criticizing the new religion of the left. It's warped to think that a person should be fired because they said something you don't like. And remember, Carano wasn't just fired. She was dropped by her talent agency, and Disney lied about what she posted, claiming it was anti-Semitic when it clearly wasn't. That was done to make sure no one would hire her. Supporting this kind of bullshit is the problem. This is someone telling jokes and holding political views you don't like, and then you wanting her life and ability to work in the film industry completely destroyed while letting people like Pedro Pascal and Christina Ariel slide. It's bullshit. You know it, Barry Weiss knows it, Gina Carano knows it, and Disney knows it. It's bullshit, and it needs to stop before you wind up with everyone getting canceled over the tiniest little thing. But what do I know? I'm just some guy.